Getting baked for the first time is a magical experience that is almost always good, bad, and very confusing. But no matter what happens, it's an experience you will remember for the rest of your life. So today, due to very popular demand, I will be telling the story of my first time ever getting baked at the age of 13. So sit back, grab your pen, and get ready to hear one of the most confusing, almost cartoon-like nights of my entire life. In order to fully understand this story, we need to go all the way back to somewhere in between April to June of 2019. I'm not entirely sure on the exact date of this story specifically, besides the fact that it was the second semester of my 7th grade year during 2019. And where this story really starts is with my friend John. At this point in time, I had known John for just over a year, and I had recently introduced him to my other friend Colton. We had all hung out together a good handful of times, but the weekend was coming up, and this time, John had bud. At this point in time, John had already smoked a good amount of times. I'd stolen my mom's dab pen a couple times, but never hit it enough to actually do anything, and Colton had never touched anything. But the last time the three of us hung out, we all talked about how we were down to smoke if we could get some bud. So John took it upon himself to buy some off of his neighbor that he normally smoked with. Me and Colton had no idea that he got some until we showed up at his house. I'm not exactly sure what time me and Colton showed up or anything like that. I just remember once we got to John's house, we set up our consoles in his room and got ready to play some prime OG Fortnite. We were playing games for a really good amount of time until eventually John's mom came over, opened up the door, and said that she was going to bed. So at this point, this is when John starts to tell us that he got some weed. So I'm all hyped up. I'm like, ain't no way you actually got some. How did you get it? So he starts telling us about how he bought it off of his neighbor. So me and John are all hyped up, like going back and forth. We're super excited to finally smoke together. And then we look over at Colton and he just looks frozen in place. Cause the thing about this dude Colton was he would always bring up something to do and then he just wouldn't actually want to do it. And it was the most confusing thing. Cause like, for example, we would be walking around and he would be like, yo, we should go break into that building. It looks abandoned. And me and John would be like, oh, hell yeah, that sounds super fun. So we would start running over to the building to go do it, and then Colton would actively start trying to stop us, and like it made no sense. The last time we hung out, he was saying how much he wanted to smoke and that we should all get weed so we can smoke together. And now that we have the weed, this dude's looking like he is so uncomfortable just even being in the same room as it. And the second that me and John look over at Colton, our energy immediately shifts from extremely excited and hyped up to just like really confused, because we're looking at him and we're like, hey, aren't you excited? Like we finally got the bud. We can all smoke together. And that's when this dude Colton is going to start talking about some, yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm smoking that. I don't want to get addicted. And so John and I are like side-eyeing each other, like, what is this dude talking about? And then he starts up saying how it's dangerous and all this stuff. Like, Colton is on the classic gateway drug speech, talking about some, oh, weed is one of the most addictive things you can do. It's going to lead you to da-da-da-da-da. And like, me and John are just mad confused because we did not care if he smoked or not. We just started asking him, we're like, why didn't you say this initially? Like, if you don't want to smoke, that's fine, but you said you did, so we planned this whole night around all three of us smoking and all this stuff, and he's like, yeah, I don't know, I mean, I'll go with you when you smoke, but I mean, I don't know if I'm actually gonna do anything though. And so me and John look at each other and we're like, yeah, okay, I don't know what this dude's on. So we kind of just keep playing Fortnite a little bit longer to make sure John's mom was fully asleep. And Colton was sitting here trying to peer pressure himself into smoking. Like, this dude genuinely, y'all need to understand before we get into the rest of the story just how weird this dude Colton was. I was only friends with him from, I think, about 5th grade to 7th or 8th grade. And he was literally just like the weirdest human known to mankind. And when I say he's weird, I don't mean your traditional weird. Like, this dude's thought process just made zero sense and there was no way to understand it. Like, I don't even think he understood his own thought process. None of his actions ever made any sense and he was always contradicting himself, and like, the guy just made no sense whatsoever. And like, he kept bringing up smoking just to himself. He's sitting here genuinely peer pressuring himself into smoking. We're all on the game. And so me and John are giving each other call outs. And this dude Colton's just sitting there like, yeah, well, I mean, smoking isn't too bad. Like, I mean, I could probably just smoke a little bit. And then he would like side-eye me and John for approval, but we just did not care. It was like he wanted us to peer pressure him into smoking, but we weren't. So he was doing it himself. It genuinely made no sense. But eventually, it was time for us to sneak out and go smoke. We were pretty sure John's mom was asleep, and we had played a good amount of games, so it was time. And the thing is, John's house was located on this golf course, and it was perfect for us to go smoke on. John's house was one story, so his window led directly outside towards the golf course. But the thing about John's house is he had really, really weird windows. He didn't have the classic windows that slide left to right or up and down. He had these crank knob windows where, like, in order to open the window, you had to crank this lever around and it would slowly push the bottom of the window out at an angle. But in order for it to get pushed out, these metal bars had to come out at an angle as well. So in order to sneak out of his room, we had to squeeze against the glass panel through a small opening in these metal bars, and me and John had done this 1,000 times whenever we would sneak in and out of his house. But this was Colton's first time. And since it was Colton's first time sneaking out of this window, we wanted to make sure he made no noise at all. So John snuck out first to show Colton how to get through the window and out to the ground without making noise. And then Colton went and I kind of helped him through the window, and then I jumped out last. By the time we snuck out, it was well past midnight, but I'm not sure of like the exact time. Once we got out of John's room, we started walking down the golf course, and we were trying to get to a secluded part that wasn't visible from any house or street. And this golf course was pitch black for the most part. There were some cart paths for like the golf carts that had street lights around it, but other than that, it was pitch black. So we kept walking for a while until eventually we found a bench to sit down and smoke at that was underneath this street light, but in the middle of the golf course far enough that nobody could see us. So we sat down on the bench and John started getting everything set up. As I was sitting there excited to smoke with John, this dude Colton was still over here trying to peer pressure himself into smoking. He keeps telling himself, well, it's not that bad to smoke. And then he like side-eyes us for approval. And the thing was, smoking is not that bad. Me and John already knew this, and we'd explained this to Colton many, many times. The way this dude Colton was talking, you would have thought he was selling his soul, not taking a one little puff of weed. This dude was acting like there was no return after smoking. Like taking one little hit was gonna make him a lifelong crack addict or something. And I'm like, dude, it's smoking weed, not murdering someone. If you think it's such a big deal, don't do it. And as I'm sitting here talking to Colton, John finishes packing the pipe. And now that I've been smoking for years, I realize how weird the setup we had was, but at the time it seemed completely normal to me. John had this tiny metal pipe that was probably like 4 inches long and a centimeter around max. When I say pipe, I mean a pipe like a tube, not an actual pipe that you smoke out of, like a genuine just tube pipe. And this thing was small as all hell. And it didn't have like a filter or anything. So John was literally just breaking down bud, like these little nugs one by one, and just stuffing it down the like front of the pipe. So John finished packing the pipe and he ended up taking the first hit, and then he went to pass it to me. And I just remember the whole time from when he was packing it to lighting it to passing it, I just had this feeling of excitement, unsureness, unease, and just like this mystical feeling rush over my body as he passed it to me. I had no idea what to expect, what being high felt like, any of it. So John passed it to me and I kept trying to light it myself, but I couldn't do it. So John had to light it for me. And the main thing I remember from that first hit is the taste. You will never taste weed as much as you do your first time hitting it. I took a hit and felt like I could taste the whole plant and dirt it grew from. After I took my first hit, I asked Colton if he wanted to hit it, and he thought about it and then said no, and then continued to try to peer pressure himself or like hype himself up into it. So John kept packing this little pipe and we kept passing it back and forth. I just remember being really confused and not thinking that I was actually baked, because like the first time you smoke, your brain does not understand what being high feels like, so you process it differently. I mean, at least I definitely did. I didn't know what being high was supposed to feel like, so I didn't know what signs to look for. I was kind of just sitting here waiting for something crazy to happen, because if you ever look up first time smoking stories, it's almost always a story about being crazy baked, seeing some visuals, or just like something crazy. That's what I was waiting for to like happen, not realizing that those stories are 1,000% fake. But by this point, John had packed like a nug and a half into this little pipe, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe he had like 2 or 3 decent sized nugs and then a smaller one. And I was already baked, but I did not realize that I was baked, because anyone who smokes knows that sometimes you can be smoking and have no idea how baked you are until some type of random event happens that requires processing skills and you realize that ain't shit up and in your brain right now. So the three of us are all just talking and laughing until eventually Colton's like, that's it, I'm taking a hit. So me and John look at each other like all surprised. And I'm like, oh shit, really? You taking a hit? You're taking a hit? And he's like, yeah, pass me the pipe, pass me the pipe. So we pass Colton the pipe and I grab the lighter to light it up for him. And that's when this dude starts tweaking out. He's like, nah, dude, nah, no. I'm not taking a lighter hit. I'm taking a dry hit. And even though this was my first time smoking, I still knew what this dude was saying made no sense. Like, what do you mean a dry hit? And he's like, I'm just gonna hit it without the lighter so that way I don't get too high. So I look over at John and he has the same exact confused face as me. So I turn back and I'm like, you just aren't going to get high. And Colton, for some reason, didn't believe that, because if we had a normal pipe, he easily could have hit it without a lighter because there would have been a cherry. This metal rod we had to refill every other hit to every single hit. And since it had such little amounts, pretty much one hit burned everything. So we have a fresh packed pipe. We give it to Colton. This dude takes a dry hit of weed and holds it in. Exhales like he's in a 60s soap opera smoking a cigarette, and zero smoke comes out because it's not burning. And this dude got the audacity to be like, whoa, that's crazy. Colton's acting like he just took a hit of salvia or some shit. And I'm like, dude, this is just bud, and unlit bud at that. So me and John are giving each other this look of like, what is this dude doing? But we knew that Colton would argue with us if we told him that wouldn't do anything. So we just shrugged it off and started smoking the rest of what we brought with us. And that dry hit must have given Colton some type of confidence boost, because right as we're smoking the last little bit of what we have, he starts saying that he wants a real hit. And this is when John's like, well, I'm about to put the roach in. And John was still fairly new to smoking at the time. And for whatever reason, he was calling the stems the roaches. You know what I'm saying? I have no idea why, but he kept calling the stems the roaches. So he's saying he's going to put in the roach. And Colton lost his mind. He's like, whoa. I might smoke weed, but I'll never smoke roach. I will never smoke roach. So me and John start dying laughing because he's literally watching John break down the exact same piece of bud that he took his dry hit from and not grab anything else. So me and John are laughing so hard, and we're trying to explain through our laughter that the like quote unquote roach John is talking about is just the stems of the weed, and it's still just weed. But this dude Colton was convinced it was crack or something. Like, he refused to believe it was weed. And at first it was funny, but the more we tried to explain to him that it was just regular bud, we realized how dead serious he was and that we could not change his mind. So we're like, okay, you don't gotta smoke, I guess. And then John starts lighting up the like last little bit of what we had. And as he's doing that, I'm like spacing out because I started going into thought about this whole like Colton thing, because I'm like, what is going on in this dude's brain right now? And then I'm starting to like really think, because I'm like, am I baked right now? Like, we're done with the weed. Am I actually baked? So I'm like trying to feel out my entire body, because I'm like, I swear I don't feel any different right now. And that's when I start to feel my eyes. Like and this is super weird to explain, but it's like, it was almost like my eyes started sinking back into my head, and I was like looking through my eyes, but not where my eyes normally were. Like, I felt like I had an extra layer that I was seeing through, you know? Like, it was just weird as hell. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, am I actually baked? Which, I mean, like, obviously I was super baked and I just didn't realize it. And this is when, literally directly behind the bench we were sitting on, we hear sticks snap on the ground like someone is just walking towards us. And it was at least 1 a.m. on this golf course, and we had a history of terrorizing the night shift workers on the course and just running into random homeless people, tweakers, just all types of stuff. And so normally when we heard someone, we would just leave. But I was super baked, just staring off so deep into thought that instead of hearing the stick snap and turning around to look for a person, I just acknowledged that someone was walking towards us slowly in the night, and then I just kept spacing off. Like, I literally was sitting here spacing off, hearing the stick snap, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess some dude's creeping up behind us, huh? And then I just kept spacing off, right? Until eventually, John goes to take another hit, and he pauses, and he's like, wait a second. Did y'all hear that stick snap? So I turn over and I'm like, yeah, someone's walking behind us. And John's like, yeah, that's what I thought. And he starts moving the lighter closer to his mouth. Then in a split second, we both fully process that someone is walking behind us in the dark very slowly at 1 in the morning just watching us. So me and John whip our heads back around at each other with this concerned look, and we both just get up and start running. The event happening is what made me realize I was way too baked, because all of a sudden I realized that we could potentially be in danger or like getting caught, and like this could just be bad. So as we're getting up to run, my brain is trying to boot up to max processing power, but all of a sudden, I got like 100 ping. My brain is lagging. I'm trying to take this seriously, but my brain just wants to laugh and relax. So me and John are starting to work towards a dead sprint away from the bench we were at. And Colton is just walking slow as all hell behind us. So we're yelling at him. We're like, dude, come on. We gotta go. We gotta go. And he starts jogging up to us. He's like, why are we running, man? And so we ask if he heard the person walking towards us, like right behind us. And he's like, oh yeah, I heard that. Like, what's the problem? This dude did not have a care in the world. From his reaction, I was wondering if me and John were just hearing things, but no, he heard exactly what we heard too, but just had zero survival instincts. So we're all running across this golf course in the pitch black night, bobbing and weaving through trees. And being baked made me feel like I was in a high stakes American Ninja Warrior course. It genuinely felt like an obstacle course, because not only were we running away from whoever was behind us, but the golf course waters their grass at night. So we kept having to change our route to avoid getting soaking wet from these random sprinklers popping up, but they also have these random like stakes in the ground with a rope connecting them. They sit a solid 8 to 10 inches above the ground. I have no idea what they're supposed to do, because they're genuinely just trip wires. And as we're dead sprinting throughout this golf course, going through the trees and everything, I feel like I'm running 10 times faster than I've ever ran in my life. I feel like I can move as fast as the Flash. I'm running, I'm like, I didn't know I was capable of this. My whole body feels so light. I feel like I'm sprinting way faster than normal, which obviously I'm sprinting same speed, but the way the wind's hitting my face and my baked brain, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm moving. So I keep trying to like look back to see where this dude's at, because we never got like an image or like a picture of where this guy was, where he was relative to us. We have no idea if he was following us, anything. So we're just at a dead sprint forward, because we know we can at least outrun him, and we don't want to find out who it is or get caught, because also weed is completely illegal in the state that I live in. So we're sprinting at max speed throughout this golf course, and Colton's trailing like fairly far behind us, but me and John are like, we're all gas, no brakes, running as fast as we can. And the thing is, we could not see a thing in the darkness. Like, the streetlights that I mentioned are explicitly and strictly only on the cart path. We're running straight through forest right now. There is no light around us, and these tripwires would come out of nowhere. So I'm following John because he knows the whole route of the golf course. He lives here. He's been on this golf course more than me. So I trust where he's going. And this dude is just sprinting and jumping every like 10 feet or so. So I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm thinking this dude jumping over tripwires. So I go to jump at the same spot that he does, and there's just nothing there. And me and John are like giggling and laughing the entire time, because like we were initially a little scared, but running through this golf course was so fun and felt like super high stakes since we couldn't get caught. So we're sprinting through this, laughing super hard, and like I keep seeing John jump over literally nothing, and I could not stop laughing at it. But we're trying to control our laughter, because this is a serious situation, so we need to be just go, go, go. And I had a slight bit of adrenaline in my system and so much dopamine. So I'm just smiling, laughing, while dead sprinting ahead, until eventually I get side by side with John to ask him where we are and where we're going. And as we talked, this is when one of those little tripwires pops up out of absolutely nowhere. And me and John both trip and land face first into the ground. And even though we were low-key scared, we just could not stop laughing at this. We laid face down for a solid 10 to 25 seconds, just laughing super hard about tripping, but eventually we started to get up, and we were looking around to try and figure out what part of the golf course we were on, and we realized that we're low-key lost. Me and John were always out on this golf course, and we never got lost. But being baked at night and aimlessly running around this golf course turned it into a maze real fast. And after we got up, we kind of just started walking around and looking for a landmark that we recognized because we had no idea where we were. And by this point, it had to have been around 20 minutes since we ran from the bench we were smoking at. We were running for a long time, and by this point, we had to have been at like the complete opposite side of the golf course. So John decides to grab the last little bit of weed that we had to smoke, and we didn't hear or see the person once we ran away, so we kind of figured we were in the clear and started to drop our guard. And as John is packing the pipe, I just remember the only thing on my mind and all I could think about was Juice WRLD. I specifically couldn't stop thinking about Let Me Know, Used To, and I'll Be Fine. The songs were all looping around in my head at the same time, and I wanted to listen to them so bad. And this is when I realized that I had my AirPods on me. So I take out an AirPod and go to put Let Me Know on, and for those of you who don't know, being baked and listening to music is a mind-blowing experience. Normally music obviously sounds good, but being baked, you hear every single little piece of what makes the song the way it is. You will hear every different instrument and sound separately, but blended together in a way that makes you feel like you can hear every individual layer of the song. You'll listen to a song you've heard a million times, and it'll sound like the first time you're ever actually hearing the song. So I decide to put Let Me Know on, and the second this song starts playing, I instantly got goosebumps across my body, and I'm like, oh, John, put this shit in your ear right now. Put this in your ear right now. So I give him an AirPod, and he did not even like Juice WRLD. But hearing Let Me Know while baked, I saw it in his eyes. It was like a peasant hearing Mozart for the first time. We sat there shuffling through my Juice WRLD playlist while smoking the last tiny bit of weed we had. And after we smoked that, that's when Colton is going to start talking about oh my gosh, I'm so high right now. Me and John are genuinely starting to get so annoyed with this dude Colton. Like, he's disrupting the whole flow and energy, just disrupting the entire night. So me and John are like, dude, you did not smoke. You are not baked. You didn't even light one atom of the bud that was in that pipe. And like, I'm not sure if Colton placeboed himself into thinking he was baked, or if he just had FOMO and wanted to act like he was having the same experience as us. Cause me and John were having the time of our lives over here. And Colton was disrupting the entire flow of what was going on. Me and John were on the same exact frequency. We understood everything each other was saying, not realizing that we sound high as all hell. We would be having this conversation, laughing our asses off, like it's just a good old flow to conversation, and Colton would just cut us off and be like, dude, you're so high right now. Oh my God, no, you are baked, man. You're high, you are hot. And like, it would just completely disrupt the whole energy. Like, it would completely disrupt the flow, make me feel all weird. And like, he could not hang in this moment because he would literally do that. And then the very next conversation we had, he would try to join the conversation with this over-exaggerated act of being baked that would throw us off so badly, we would have to genuinely think about what he was saying and make him repeat it. But as we walk around, we ended up finding a destination that we recognized. There was like this landfill type of area in the golf course that we normally went and like messed around at. So once we found that area, we finally knew exactly where we were. And since we knew where we were, we decided to walk towards the driving range and like main building of the golf course in order to work our way back to John's house and just get back slowly. But as we're walking towards this driving range, me and John are talking about how much fun it was running away from that dude. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if that guy was real, but bobbing and weaving through those trees was way too fun. Like, I want to do that again, like until eventually we realize that we just can do that again. We can run right now and it's gonna be the same exact thing. So me and John start slowly picking up our pace until eventually we're full-blown sprinting, bobbing and weaving through the trees again. Big old smiles on our face. We're laughing way too hard. People keep tripping, stumbling. Like, it is way too fun. And like, I cannot explain the feeling of pure joy and euphoria I felt sprinting through that dark golf course. Me and John both got one of my AirPods in, and Colton's trailing behind us. Me and John are trying to stay like fairly close together so the AirPods don't disconnect. And eventually we get to the driving range and like the main building. So I go from a full-blown sprint to a dead stop pretty damn quickly. And this is when John, not paying attention, hit sticks me, and me and him start rolling down this hill. John hit me so hard that he knocked the wind out of me. And like, I was trying to laugh, but I genuinely could not breathe. And as we're like laying on the ground, I'm trying to laugh. I start looking up at the sky. And I just remember like starting to talk about some random nonsense that I don't even remember until like Colton starts talking about we're way too baked, da 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 da. And like me and John are just like laying in this grass, staring up at the sky, listening to Juice WRLD. And like, it is just the best vibe I'd ever felt in my life up until that moment. And so Colton is nonstop just being like, guys, we should go home. We should go home. So we're like, okay, fine. Like me and John start to get up. We're like, okay, we'll head back. And so we start to get up to go walk back. And that's when I realized that the grass we were laying in was wet as all hell because the entire backside of my clothes are soaking wet. And we didn't even realize that the ground was wet when we were laying on it. And so I'm just annoyed. I'm all wet. And we're walking and talking, slowly making our way back to John's house until eventually it was in sight. So we stopped talking. I take my AirPods back, put them away, and we slowly start creeping up to John's window. Me and John had snuck in and out of this window a million times. So we get to the window and John starts climbing through the window. I went to get in next, and this is when Colton grabs me to physically stop me from entering the window. And at first, this genuinely just pissed me off. I turn around and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he starts talking about oh my gosh, no, you're so high, man. You're so baked, dude. Like, you're way too baked to get through that window. And he's genuinely just pissing me off. For the past 20 or so minutes, that's all that Colton was saying was just, nah, you guys are so high. Oh my gosh, you're so baked. And I didn't even feel like I was crazy high, but Colton was telling me that since I was pretty baked, he should go through the window first, just in case I make too much noise and wake up John's mom. This actually made sense. This was the first good point Colton had made the entire night. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't feel like being baked will affect me in any way, but low-key I might make more noise. So I'm like, yeah, you go first. You go first. And so Colton goes to climb through the window. What I am about to tell y'all sounds so made up and fake that I questioned either watering down these details or straight up cutting this part from the story because it sounds so unbelievable and cartoonish. But I could not tell the story without telling every single detail. Because I kind of explained at the start of the story how weird John's windows are. And they were even weirder to get back through than they were to get out. Because in order to climb through this window, you had to step on a water spout for the hose. Then you had to step from the water spout to the spot on the house that actually hung their hose up on. And so I start telling Colton that that's what he's got to do to get through safely. And this dude's just like, yeah, I got it. And this dude like kind of like waves me off and he's going to step on the water spout, step on the hose, and then start trying to climb through the window. This may have been the least athletic display I have ever seen in my life because Colton, not only was he shorter than us, he was also skinnier than me and John. There was no reason he shouldn't be able to slip through the window and slip through those grates extremely easily, but he was struggling to pull himself up and he kept angling his body, banging around the house and the window and the rods, making all types of noise. So I low-key start panicking because it's probably like somewhere between 2, 3 in the morning and this dude is making so much noise. So I'm like looking around because I can see the window where John's mom sleeps and I'm just hoping that the light doesn't turn on. But the noise did not stop there. As Colton awkwardly angled his body to get through the window, he was almost fully in John's room. And quite literally, all you have to do to get through this window is pull yourself straight up, get your waist on top of like where the window sill is, put your hands onto John's bed, and just kind of like slowly let yourself down. It is the easiest thing in the world if you know what you're doing. But this dude, Colton, decides to just let himself fall from the window to the bed instead of slowly letting himself down. This was a huge mistake because when he fell, he did not go down alone. I was outside, so I don't fully like know what happened. I just watched Colton fall through the window, get his foot caught on the metal rods that push out the window. So then he tried to pull and twist his foot to get out. And he somehow, all in one motion, is moaning and groaning extremely loud, pulls his foot out, falls through the window, gets his foot caught in the curtains after freeing his foot from the window, pulls down the curtains and the rod and the supports. He pulls the full curtain and rod out of the wall. He fell off the bed, knocked over a nightstand and some other things, and from my perspective, I watched Colton fall through the window, and then I just heard 20 seconds of straight up the loudest noises possible. I'm sitting outside, and it sounds like cartoon sound effects are coming from John's room. There's metal being ripped from the walls, the hollow metal pipes are banging around, making all types of dings and random noises. Everything is just banging against the walls. The nightstand or whatever it was fell to the ground, loud as all hell. Books went everywhere. Everything on top of the nightstand was going flying. A lamp fell. Colton's groaning in pain. John is like quietly screaming at Colton and in a full-blown panic. And I'm still outside in complete shock, and I can't even really see inside. But before I can even process what the noises are, John just shuts the window on me. This all takes place in the span of maybe 30 seconds. But now I'm in a full-blown panic because it sounds like a bomb just went off in John's room. So I figure there is no way his mom does not wake up. So now I think we're done for, because me and John are baked as hell. It's at least 2 to 3 in the morning. The only sober person here somehow made the worst possible mistake. So I'm sitting outside in complete shock and panic because if John's mom woke up, she's gonna go check on us, and I am outside. I'm not in the room. There'll only be 2 people in there if she opens the door. And I know damn well if John's mom goes to check on us and I'm not in the room, let alone the house, she will know that we snuck out because we'd already almost been caught a couple times. So I start circling John's house, looking for any unlocked window, door, or just any entry point in the house. And I was in such a panic, I'm sprinting around the house, just trying to open every window, every door, and then I would just be like touching the side of the house, and then I'd forget what I was doing. I'd be like, wait, hang on, why am I touching the side of the house right now? Oh my God, I gotta get inside. Like I just kept having this thought process repeat of pure panic, and then all of a sudden baked autopilot would take over. I'd be like, hang on, man, what am I doing? And I'd remember, and it was terrible. So I'm literally just running all around the house until eventually I work my way to the backyard. And this is when I go around and I see the doggy door into the garage. And I'm like, oh, bet. That's my entry point. That's my entry point. So I get down on all fours. I crawl through this doggy door. Now I'm in the garage. There's a door from the garage that leads inside. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I might be home free. It's locked. So at this point, I'm like, oh, no, this is so bad. I'm like panicking because I'm like, this was my best bet and it's locked. How am I gonna get inside? So I'm trying to think of any way to get inside. I'm thinking. I go to crawl back through the doggy door. I'm still thinking about a way to get inside. All of a sudden, I'm inside. I genuinely have no idea how I got inside. In the moment and to this day, I have no idea whatsoever how I got back inside the house. No clue at all. I just remember thinking about how I'm supposed to get inside. How am I supposed to get inside? How am I supposed to get inside? And then I'm still thinking about how I'm supposed to get inside, but now I'm just inside. Like at one of my baked autopilot points, I must have found an entry into the house and just kept thinking about finding an entry to the house because I have no idea how I got inside. I genuinely have no clue how I got inside. But once I realized that I'm inside, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I need to get to John's room. So now I have a different mission. I'm going down the living room over to the hallway trying to find John's room. And I can like hear them talking in the room, panicking. Like I don't know exactly what they're saying. I just hear these panicked whispers coming from John and Colton from the room. So I just walk up to the door, open the door loud as all hell, and these 2 motherfuckers try to play like they're asleep. They were looking out the window, and then the second I touch the doorknob, they do a 180, fall into the bed, act like they were dead asleep. And at this point, I instantly realize that they think I'm John's mom, and I probably should not have opened the door as aggressively as his mom would have. So I just start laughing super hard because I'd always wondered what his mom's perspective was when we would do that and whenever she opened the door, and it was much more obvious than I thought it was. And once I start busting out laughing, they both rise up from the bed and John's like, whoa, what the, how did you get inside? I thought you were my mom. And I was laughing so hard, I could not respond for a solid second. I just remember, once I could form a sentence, I asked John if his mom came in and they said no, like they don't even think she woke up, which I was in genuine shock because this was the most noise we could have possibly made. His mom would normally wake up whenever we opened his door to go to the bathroom right next to him, and she didn't wake up from a nuke going off. So I'm in just pure and utter shock. And after asking that, they asked me how I got inside. So I sat there, tried like thinking about it, and my only memory was being outside, circling the house, going into the doggy door, going out of the doggy door, being super confused and inside all of a sudden. And so I was just relieved that like I figured out how to get inside, but I have no idea how I got in. So then John asked me why I even left, because they opened the window literally 10 seconds after they closed it and I was nowhere to be found. And apparently they told me to just wait a second, but I do not remember them telling me to wait. I just remember the window getting shut and I was in a panic. So I just started explaining to John that I thought that if his mom woke up and came into the room and I wasn't in the room, let alone the house, she would know we snuck out and that it would be bad. So I figure I need to find some way to get into the house just in case. And this made perfect sense to John. But after those two sentences right there, I have zero recollection of the night. I don't know if it's because we went to sleep. I don't know what the situation was, but I just remember getting in the house, having that conversation, and then waking up the next day. Like, I do not remember a single thing else. But let this be a lesson to y'all, that if you are going to smoke for the first time, take as many safety precautions as possible. This was one of the most unpredictable nights I'd had in my entire life up till that moment. And having like a fucking experienced person with you, or you know what I'm saying, just like a sober person who's actually smart, is a must. Do not bring a Colton though. If you're bringing a sober person, do not bring a Colton. That almost ruined my entire experience. But if you're gonna do anything, just make sure you're being safe. Everything is so unpredictable. Make sure you're getting dispensary weed and make sure you are staying safe. Thank you all so much for watching to the end of the video. If you enjoy story content like this, be sure to subscribe because I have so much more coming to the channel, and the stories are all officially on Spotify as well for those of y'all who are interested in that. And as far as this story goes, just kind of a little debrief, a lot of people were telling me that they wanted a shorter story on the channel, so I tried to make this one into a shorter story. Unfortunately, from how much detail I like to give, I am not capable of making short stories, I have found out. I tried to cut out any like dead moments of the story to make it as short as possible. So it kind of just jumps from key point to key point to key point, unlike my other stories. For those of y'all who are kind of like curious about this one's why it's a little bit differently told than the rest of my stories, that is why. But I hope that y'all enjoyed the video. We're gonna have much more coming. The second channel is also officially here with weekly uploads coming to it, so that should be linked down in the bio as well. But appreciate y'all watching to the end of the video and supporting any of my content, and I will see y'all in the next video.